My name is Mel Slater. I'm from University of Barcelona, and I'm in the GuestXR project. And this is the last of a series of 4 webinars. And today we're going to talk about co-presence and social presence. And the presenters are Ramon Oliver, who's a postdoctoral researcher at the Event Lab. He's going to talk more about the technical side and some of the applications. And going to talk about some particular studies we've done, and she's going to talk about co-presence and social presence. So Esan is going to talk about for 25 minutes, and then Ramon immediately afterwards for another 25 minutes. Then there'll be 10 minutes left at the end to ask questions. And questions can be done either by using the chat or by coming online and through video and audio. I think that's it. So you can start now then, Esan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Mel. I'm Esan Küçüktutuncu, and I will be talking about understanding co-presence, and I'm going to go over some experiments that we've done. So we're going to start off by defining co-presence and then some early examples that we can find in literature. And from there, we're going to look into the key elements that constitutes co-presence and how these play a role in the future and now when we're talking about social VR. And I have one use case to present, which is a conflict resolution experiment that we're about to conclude. And finally, I will finish with the small group dynamics in virtual reality. Co-presence makes virtual interactions feel more genuine and socially impactful. And here it is important to make the distinction between the co-presence and social presence. So social presence can be defined as a degree to which individuals feel the prominence of others and they experience the quality of interpersonal relationships during interactions. So this concept is commonly associated with computer-mediated communication, virtual environments, and immersive technologies such as virtual reality. Jointly, they play a great role in allowing the feeling of presence to occur. So here we can say that the premise of social presence is simply that if other people are in a virtual world, there's more evidence that the world exists. If they ignore you, you begin to question your own existence. So similar to presence, co-presence also consists of various illusions and elements. So the first one is body ownership, the feeling that the body that you are seeing in the virtual environment is your own body. The place illusion, the place that you are in, the feeling of being there in that space. And finally, plausibility, the events that are happening around you are really happening. So Goffman made clear that co-presence involves also in 2 moments. Firstly, when individuals sense that they are able to perceive others, and secondly, when others are able to perceive them. And we could say that co-presence and these illusions are also a product of multiple elements that are causing them. So we need multisensory integration in order for the feeling of co-presence, multiple sensors to be able to express ourselves or perceive, etc. We need the space, the virtual environment to be responsive and the avatar that we're embodying to be personal and coherent. And finally, we need the sensory motor contingencies for perception. So these are sensory motor contingencies are the rules and principles that govern how sensory information is obtained through motor actions and how these actions in turn modify sensory inputs. They are greatly linked with embodied cognition. And then if we move towards some early examples, shared virtual reality has been around for an impressive amount of time. As early as in the 1990s, Jaron Lanier and Blanchard built the Reality Built for Two. It was a virtual reality tool that, compared to nowadays technologies, a really low poly experience, but at the same time, it was quite impactful. And then in 98, Mel Slater and his group did an experiment of small group behavior experiments in the Coven project. Another example that we can have a closer look in is the leadership and collaboration shared virtual environments. So this was an experiment where people had to have a collaborative task to identify a common phrase among individual words that were pinned to walls around the room. So they had the avatars that you see here. And then there was a technological difference. There were people in the immersive setup and also a screen-based computer setup. So in this experiment, they observed that people had paranoid thoughts caused by being stared at. So behaviors that we would normally observe in real life actually happened in this experiment as well. And then leadership conferred by computational advantage. The participants who were in an immersive setup actually emerged as leaders. And there was a feeling of embarrassment of being excluded. So the conversations and the dynamics kind of followed real life scenarios once again. In the questionnaires, a measure of copresence correlated with presence. People actually observed and felt a strong attachment to their virtual bodies. It was almost rude to intersect with one another. And also people obeyed the social norms. If there was a collusion, they actually apologized. And finally, failure of expectation where avatar appearance did not match avatar behavior, which in the context of presence, it does follow the theory. And if we were to kind of look closer into some of the key elements that allows co-presence to occur, one of the first one I think is the proxemics. So in an early experiment in 2003 with Jeremy Bailenson and al., they looked into the interpersonal distance in an immersive virtual environments, and they observed that people maintained greater distance from virtual humans when approaching from the front compared to the back. So they were keeping a certain distance in order to give them enough space and personal space. And they also observed that distance greater when the virtual humans engaged in mutual gaze. If they were looking at each other or if they were sharing the gaze, people actually kept a greater distance. Another experiment that was done in 2010 also looked into proxemics with multiple dynamic characters. And similar to the previous experiments, when virtual human characters approach people, the proxemics effects did hold. And they observed the skin conductance responses that were increasing when the closer the approach. If the virtual character was approaching to a greater proximity, they would have their physiological responses spike. And these effects, some of these effects also occurred by approach of cylinders. So virtual objects also caused similar effects. If we move into another key element, we could talk about eye gaze. So eye gaze is also something that has been looked closely into. This is a paper from 2008 that looks into avatar eye gaze and interactional analysis in immersive collaborative virtual environments. And here we can say that gaze is associated with conversational attention. If we're having a conversation, if we are looking into the person that is speaking, or we acknowledge that we are being looked at, this actually is allowing the co-presence to increase. The mutual awareness of gaze is also a really important element, and it allows the appropriate flow of conversation, that we can follow the conversation and how it's happening and who regarding the turns that is occurring. In this work, we can say that the task performance is superior when there's eye gaze in an immersive environment compared to a video. And then track gaze rates as superior to static gaze and model-based gaze. So we could say that the eye gaze becomes a general social resource, and also it, as a side note, leads to a better detection of lying. Moving on to another key element is their avatar representation. So we can compare various ways of representing avatars regarding their realistic form or the amount of body parts that we're representing. In this paper by Bailenson, they looked into the behavior realism on social interactions inside collaborative virtual environments. And there were different configurations and conditions with avatar representation. They had the full body, or they had the hands with floating head. So here they observed that the consistency was key. So the interaction between gaze and realism of avatar, gaze behavior occurred more important for more realistic avatars. So we actually kind of shared gaze, and it actually does follow. And the realistic virtual human led to greater social presence and place illusion. One thing they did observe in this experiment was that the conditions with hand tracking, in particular with the floating head and hands, resulted in greater social presence, self-presence, and interpersonal attraction, although these differences that are mentioned were relatively weak. To give an example from our lab, this is in the image you see David Chalmers, who is a philosopher that also closely works with the realm of virtual reality and the theory of consciousness, who was being interviewed for Financial Times by journalists, and they were physically apart. And in VR United, which is the application we use, they met in a sushi restaurant and they conducted the interview there, which Ramon will talk about later. But I wanted to show kind of like the fidelity of the avatars we are using currently, which is based on a single RGB image, and we are able to create this realistic avatars, which then can be used in immersive environments. For those who want to have a closer look, these are two reviews that are in the recent years that go over multiple papers. So the first one has 152 studies reviewed, and second one also goes beyond reality, and they are quite extensive when it comes to the amount of information and the reflection they give. Before moving on to some examples of some studies that we did, I could talk about some implication for design. So when we're designing any kind of social virtual environment, I think the choices that we make are quite relevant. So on the right, we see virtual VR United, which can house multiple scenarios or rooms, we could say, depending on any kind of context, be it educational, therapy, or experimental scenarios. And then another good example that we could give is UBIC, which is from Anthony Seed's lab in UCL. And there it's also shares a similar dynamic of shared space. Maybe the only difference can be that they have different non-realistic avatars, but also when it comes to networking and the abilities in the, at least in the academic realm, it's a really good example that we could consider for design. Now, I will give you an example of a shared virtual reality experience that was done in 2018 that was a complex shared virtual reality and illusory death. So in this experiment, groups of 3 people met in a beautiful island over 6 days. Their avatars, which were quite alien-like, started as child form. They gradually matured, grew old, and eventually died. When the participant died in virtual reality, they had a near-death experience. This was based on some early reports of people who actually experienced this. So it was traveling towards the light or your soul leaving your body and having an out-of-body experience. And then they saw from the outside their partners, the other participants who shared the experience, build a memorial for them. And the question was, does an extended experience of life, death, and near-death experience impact life attitudes? So I would like to show you a brief clip. I'm gonna skip over some parts, but just to show you how it looked. Okay, we can move on for the sake of time. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So after this experiment and the questionnaires were present, the participants reported that they had a feeling of presence. So the sensation to be in the virtual world continued to be high through the 6 days. And then if we look into plausibility in the next slide, we'll see that it also was valid for the plausibility. The events that are happening are really happening as well. It actually gradually almost increased. And then if we look into the co-presence, just like presence, it was also maintained high through the days. And then if we look into body ownership, it also remained quite high, even though technically on the last day, in the last session, they were quite old and frail. The body ownership still persisted. And finally, if we look into cyber sickness, so being uncomfortable or dizzy, remained relatively low with some outliers. So if we can observe that there was a feeling of strong presence, co-presence, and plausibility. The ownership occurred in spite of alien bodies. Strong social bonds were formed without any speaking occurring, so there were no speaking, it was just gestures. And the knowledge was passed down to generations. So in the first day of the experiments, the experimental would to say briefly, like train one of the participants so that that participant could show how to navigate through the virtual environment to the rest of them. And there was a certain sadness on leaving the environment for the last time. And when they met in real life, some weeks later, there was an emotional interaction. And finally, life review changes occurred as a result of this extended virtual meeting in the surreal world. So now we can talk about the use case of conflict resolution, which is one of the experiments that we are conducting within the GuestXR project. So to go over briefly, it's an experiment where we are looking into perspective taking and in a group out-group conflict that is occurring, which is something that is studied quite extensively in social psychology. So for this, in the next slide, people have realistic bodies in this room where behind them they have some posters representing their opinion regarding the effect of taking flights and climate change. So if we move to next slide, we'll see that there are two different takes. The first person is basically saying that I do not wish to reduce the amount of flights I take because for various reasons, it can be because it's a corporate responsibility. I want to live my life, etc. And the other perspective is, yes, as an individual, you should be reducing the amount of flights. So in the conversation, after 5 minutes, they swap bodies. And when they swap bodies, they have to swap their opinions as well. So they basically are looking at themselves from the outside and they have to try to convince or to try to defend the opposite opinion, which they were just defending a few minutes ago. And this occurs again where they finish in their own body. And hopefully we are about to wrap up this experiment and we will share the results as soon as possible. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about is the small group dynamics and virtual reality. It's an experiment that we concluded and we are in the process of writing the paper. So in this experiment, it was an experimental study with the goal to understand whether there are systematic differences between strangers and friends. So the prior acquaintance you have with the people that you meet in virtual reality, does that play a role in the way you engage? So groups of 3 or 4 people met in virtual reality, accompanied by a moderator, and the moderator would ask the questions. Certain semi-controversial questions such as, does social media have a better or worse effect on society? Do you think a meditation or mindfulness are practices that are real or not, etc.? In total, we had 56 participants with 18 groups. 2 groups failed due to technical reasons. So we had 16, 8 per condition. And like I said, the binary factor was that whether or not the individuals in the group knew each other or not. So in the following, we can have a little clip of how it looked like.
Think there over the years we've noticed so much significant evidences on its effects on mental health. For example, social media addiction could lead us to sleep deprivation. So it could significantly think there over the years we've noticed so much
So
significant evidence.
we can move to the next slide. And it can be seen that for presence, the entire interquartile range for friends group is greater than the median of the stranger group. So it seemed that the friends had a higher sense of presence. And then when we looked into the responses for the discussion, some scores in the next slide. Some scores indicate a strong liking for the experience, such as interesting, smooth, and comfortable. However, for virtuality, the entire interquartile range for friends group is lower than the median of the strangers group, indicating that those with friends did not find that the VR increased the quality of the discussion. However, those in the strangers group may have felt a bit more at ease, maybe. Again, these are informal results and do not take into account the possible differences between groups, but then again, it's something that we should be considering. And on top of the questionnaires, we asked the participant to write essays from 150 to 500 words regarding their experience. So this was about the quality of the experience, the use of technology, and their comparison to a face-to-face conversation. And afterwards, with this essays, we conducted sentiment analysis. So for this, we used the bird-based multilingual Anke sentiments model from Hugging Face. And this model is a multilingual model, and we had participants who talk Spanish or English, so we were able to analyze it without going through translation. And the way it does is that it predicts the sentiment with a score between 1, which is the lowest, and 5, which is the highest sentiment. So in the next slide, we see the distribution of sentiment scores by condition. We could say that it is clear that the overwhelming sentiment was high for both of the groups. So 84% overall had scores higher than 4. However, considering the scores that are 3 or less, 27% of those in the strangers group are in this category, compared to only 4% of those in the friends group. So if in case of interest, this difference is significant using a simple test of difference of two proportions. So as a preliminary conclusion, we could say that the overall sentiment is positive, although there is a relatively negative sentiment among those in the strangers group. In the following, we also did some analysis in the speaking time, turn taking, and the talking dynamics. And this figure shows the total speaking times and the portions of time occupied by the participant speaking, excluding the moderator. It can be seen that both the speaking time overall and the proportion of time that the participants spoke, excluding the moderator, were greater in friends compared to stranger groups. And then I would like to quickly wrap up the whole presentation. So we could say that copresence is essential for creating immersive and interactive VR experiences. Proxemics, eye gaze, and avatar representation greatly influence the interaction. We can also say that understanding copresence can enhance the effectiveness of VR applications in various domains such as education, therapy, and social interaction. VR environments provide unique opportunities for addressing and resolving conflicts, and prior familiarity among participants affects the quality of their VR experience. And finally, considering all this, further research on the long-term impact of VR experiences on social behaviors and attitudes might be necessary. And with this, I would like to conclude my part of the presentation. Sorry for the hiccups and the technical problems, and thank you so much for listening. And I'll leave the floor to Ramon.
Thanks very much. So we're going to move straight to Ramon, and then at the end of that, there'll be a chance for you to ask questions to both of today's speakers. So over to you, Ramon.
My name is Ramon Oliva. As Mel has introduced me earlier, and I will talk about VR United, that is the multi-user platform that we have been developing here in the Event Lab for having several virtual select experiences. So here there is like a very early stage of this application, so we can get an idea of what we can get. So basically, it's a basic shared environment that we use in order to have some several meetings and so on. And something important about VR United is that it's completely cross-platform. So it works on several devices like, the Oculus Rift, also the Quest series, Pico, and on the most common VR devices that we can find in the market. And also, it's possible to join to a virtual reality session without only with a computer and without any kind of VR headset. So here we can see
from the Event Lab.
an early
I work
stage.
with Mel at the UV, and I've been developing this shared environment. And this is just a short demo to show some things that we can do with the set environments. Obviously, one obvious thing is to be able to do some virtual meetings with our avatars that look like ourselves.
And so, yes, we have developed not only scenarios for having meetings, but also we have like some other scenarios like going to a concert, having dinner into a restaurant, and in fact, we can develop any kind of shared virtual experience that we might think on. So one important thing that Essien already mentioned is that in VR United we used some avatars that resemble ourselves. And we in this part we use a novel approach that we can generate this kind of fully animated avatars with just a single photo that you can see here. So from this single photo, in a pose, we can generate a fully 3D animated avatar. And we did this because normally for generating a virtual avatar based on scanning and so on, it requires like, very huge equipment and very expensive equipment that is not affordable for normal users. And with this technique, just with a single photo that you can take with your mobile phone, we can generate this kind of avatar. And it's not only the appearance, but also we have facial expressions applied to the avatars. So also this is adapted to the tracking features that the VR headset offers. So for example, if we are using a Quest Pro that has facial tracking, we can map all the facial expression to our virtual avatar, including the lip sync, the blinking, and so on. But also, if these features are not available on the headset, imagine that you, for example, are using a Quest 3 or as the most of the devices that doesn't have this facial tracking feature, we can simulate these features by software also. So when you are in virtual reality, it makes a better feel when you're looking an avatar that is blinking and having some emotions, in fact. So in order to develop this, all the applications that we develop in our lab, including VR United, are built in top of some of the libraries that we have been developing in the Event Lab during these years. And one of these libraries is QuickVR, that is basically a library for embodiment. So I won't enter into details about how it works because it would be like another presentation. But basically, it's relatively simple to use. You just download the package and add a script to an avatar, and then you can control the avatar with well, with your body movements and so on. Also, this library can adapt to the tracking data that is available. So for example, here I am using the hand tracking, and that's why I can move freely also my hands and my fingers and so on. But yeah, and all this is transparent to the programmer. So there is nothing special to do. Just it will automatically adapt to the tracking data that is available at each moment. Also, this library contains several metaphors for...
Please, keep your head looking front and do not move while the screen is in black.
For moving into the virtual space, which is called locomotion. So, well, we can, for example, move with the controllers. We can like move by physically displacing in the physical world. And also we can combine several locomotion systems at the same moment. So we can use the controllers while we are walking and doing walking in place. We also have teleport and well, a lot of movement metaphors that we can use in order to displace through the virtual world. What else? Well, obviously, the most important thing or one of the key aspects of VR United is that it's a shared experience. So one important thing also is the networking part. In order to address the communication between different clients, we are currently using Photon Engine, and well, it's quite straightforward to use, as only it requires for the user to have an internet connection, as all the low-level details such as firewalls and reliability and so on are hidden by the Photon service. So, and also this engine also allows for voice synchronization. So when you join to VR United, you have to either create a room or join to an existing one. A virtual room basically is an instance of the application, and also participants must agree on the room that they are going to meet, because by design it is not possible the communication between different rooms. About the scalability, well, there are several aspects that may limit the scalability of the application. First of all is the Photon engine itself, the limitations that the engine has. So there is like two main uses of Photon engine. Either we use the Photon servers, or that is what we are using now, or we can also self-host the server and have other options. If we are using the Photon servers, where we have from 20 to 2,000 maximum concurrent users, depending on the plan that we are using. Currently, we are not paying it, so we are on the 20 maximum concurrent users. And also, there is a limitation that you only can have 16 users per room. On the other hand, if you are self-hosting the Photon server, you have some border limits. So you can have from 100 to unlimited maximum of concurrent users, depending on the plan that you are paying. And in that case, the maximum number of users it's equals to the capacity of the server. But also there is another point that obviously limits the scalability of the application and how many people can really interact at the same time. That is basically the amount of data that needs to be transmitted at each network frame. So basically, there are like three big types of data that needs to be transmitted in order to correctly synchronize the environment. That is the avatar data. This means all the facial expression, but also body pose and so on, which in fact it's, I think, really well compressed. So this part is not much critical. Also, the voice that this part is the one that takes more language, and so it's the bottleneck currently of the application, the voice transmission, and also the state synchronization. And this means, for example, if we have some interactive objects in the scene and we move those objects, these objects have to be also synchronized in the different clients. So with all this, we are currently having scenes that supports currently up to 11 participants at the same time. So more than that, we start experiencing some network issues and so on. But also we have to mention that we have not addressed a properly optimization phase. So probably we can push harder these limits some way. And yes, and also I would like to mention that, as I've mentioned it, we are using Photon, but we are also studying to move to Qubit, that is another networking engine, in order to avoid using Photon. That would allow us to also overcome some of the limitations of using Photon. Well, so basically another functionality that VR United offers is that it is possible to record and playback a VR United session, as for example we are doing now, that we are recording this Zoom session, and you can play it back later to watch it. So you can do the same in virtual reality, and also what we record is basically everything. So we record for each participant the avatar selection and the body pose for each participant. And this data is stored in a public server, so it's accessible from anywhere. It's not that it's locally stored in the headset, but on a local server. So you just need a headset or a device, basically, with the VR United application, and then you can access to any recorded application there. And also we have developed like some data transmission that is efficient, and the storage also is efficiently stored. And well, you don't notice while you are playing that you are being recorded, because there is no impact in the performance. I mean, so what are the main uses of these applications? Obviously, one of the main uses is to revisit a past session alone or with others. So imagine that you can join with other people to a session that you couldn't join when it was done. And also, we can recover the state of a session at a specific time. So this is very important, because it allows us to post-process the information and evaluate and extract all the information that we may need in order to later evaluate these sessions, which is very important for experiments where we need to extract some data and so on. As I say, everything is recorded in that moment. So now I'm going to show some use cases of this application. One that Tessен already mentioned, it's maybe the first like big stress test that we had in VR United, because well, it was like an interview that was fully done inside this system. By David Thornhill, that is a journalist from Financial Times, was interviewing to David Chalmers. And one important thing is that it was quite interesting, because on that interview, David Thornhill was physically located in London, while David Chalmers was in New York, and we were recording here from Barcelona. And one important thing is that we didn't notice any kind of lag or limitation due to the broad separation physically road separation. So we can see like a shot extraction.
Ordered from a local place. It's not bad looking. It kind of matches. Although I did. Good. What do you think of the restaurant? Do you come here often? Yeah, not too bad. I guess sushi's a specialty, best fast food. It's got a nice diner quality to it, although we appear to be in the middle of a giant car parking lot if you look outside.
Yes, well, that would explain why we're the only people here.
Right, yeah, it is eerily quiet.
Well, and also a similar case was done some months later by Raúl Gallego, that in that case he interviewed Hiroshi Shiguro, that is a very renowned scientist in robotics in Japan. And in also that case, they were far away from each other. And Raúl was in Jerusalem at that time. Hiroshi Shiguro was in Tokyo. And well, this interview was the first that we recorded inside VR United also. And so you can review this interview inside VR United, joining as if you were there. So you can see the example here where I'm joining in that interview.
With the trigger, you can take an input to your mouth, you can eat it.
Come on, right? Already?
You have to use the hand command.
I cannot.
It's quite funny, and you can put it. You can put it to your hand, to your mouth, and it will disappear.
Just a moment.
Okay. So here I am as if I was in the real interview.
So this is the first time that yourself did
this is very fun.
Embody yourself in a VR avatar.
Sushi. Well, he's trying to steal my sushi.
No. I have my own avatar.
You are truly hungry, yeah?
This is very fun. I can eat all the sushi.
So let me.
And well, most recently, maybe some of you assisted also to the YouTube broadcasting that we did last week. And well, it was also quite interesting use case where some of the participants in GuestXR met together in order to discuss about virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and so on. And this was simultaneously recorded in VR United, but also streamed in YouTube.
Right. Shall I start? Are we all good to start?
Good.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone. Yes. And welcome everyone looking at us on YouTube, wherever you're located. Welcome to join us in this very special room. And together with me, we have Mel, we have Beatrice, myself, Sylvia, Mavi, Duran, and Anotet. So I'm going to leave the task to introduce themselves to kick this panel start. So can you please all introduce yourself, but also importantly, where physically you are located at the moment. Mel, do you want to kick start, please?
Yes, so thanks everyone for coming. I'm Mel Slater. I'm at the University of Barcelona, and I'm physically now located here in Barcelona. And I look forward to this interesting discussion.
Beatrice?
I'm Beatrice de Gelder. I'm physically located in my lab here in Maastricht University in the Netherlands.
Right, I'm Sylvia Pan. I'm physically located in London, UK. Mavi?
Hi, I'm Mavi Sanchez Vives, and I am located in Barcelona at the Institute of Biomedical Research, August P. Suñer.
Hi, I'm Doron Friedman. I'm now located in my office in Reichman University in Herzliya, north of Tel Aviv. That's in the Middle East.
Anatole?
Hi, so I am Anatole Lécuyer, and I'm currently in France, in the west part of France, in Brittany region, in my laboratory office at INRIA, the French National Research Institute in Computer Science. Hello, everybody.
Brilliant to see that we're all physically populated in various places, but virtually we really feel that we're together in this metaverse. So my next question
So
is...
you can see the full interview and discussion in the YouTube channel from GuestXR, but also in VR United. Right? That I think that it's quite interesting. Also, something that we have been working on is into integrating LLM into, well, our applications. So the first approach was to generate a conversation between two historical figures that are Pablo Picasso and Ramón y Cajal, and have a conversation between each other about creativity and neuroscience and so on. And this chat was generated by ChatGPT. So we can see here a very short extraction.
Santiago, have you ever considered, well, how surreal this very conversation is? Here we are, two figures from history, brought to life and conversing in an era not our own.
It did cross my mind. Our existence here is a testament to the very convergence of art, science, and technology we've been discussing.
Balance, as always, is key. Technology should enhance our experiences, not replace them. Real human connections, the touch of a hand, the laughter shared between friends, these are irreplaceable. No virtual reality can truly mimic the warmth of genuine human emotion.
To think that we have been reimagined using the very innovations we speculated about. This proves that the boundaries of creativity and understanding are ever expanding.
So the full conversation is about 10 minutes and you can experience this in VR United, and also I think that it's quite good. So, well, what you have seen now is something that was pre-recorded, but also it's possible to directly interact with ChatGPT in real time. So this is here another test that we did with Ishiguro.
As an AI language model, I don't have emotions or physical sensations, so I don't experience feelings like humans do. However, I'm here to assist you and answer any questions you may have. How can I help you today?
Okay. I want to visit the Sagrada Familia. Please tell me how can I get to the Sagrada Familia?
Speak slowly. Is there anything specific you'd like me to talk about?
And well, this is basically how it's done. So the participant speaks and this audio is transformed using Whisper to text. Whisper is basically another AI model. And this text is used as a prompt for ChatGPT. ChatGPT then outputs another, some piece of text that using 11 Labs, that is another AI model, we convert this text into audio that we play back from the point of view of the virtual agent. Basically, it's the Python. And finally, I would like to mention something that we are developing in the GuestXR project, that is basically to have also this kind of avatars interacting with the participants on a virtual meeting. So this is a very basic example where the idea is that there is a moderator that will try to equalize the amount of talking of each participant. So this moderator that is controlled by the artificial intelligence can have some actions in order to try to get to equalize the amount of talking of each one of the participants. So for example, imagine that all the participants are more or less talking the same, but the red one is the one that is talking less. So the guest may have some actions like directly addressing to this participant and ask him, what do you think? And also there are more subtle actions, like all the participants look at the participant that is talking less in order to try to this participant to engage to the conversation. And the idea of the experiment that is in progress is that, well, the participant that is talking less will start speaking more. And we have here a very first application of this.
Find it amazing that you're at home, I'm at home, and yet we're still here in the same room together.
Yeah, sure. And what is more amazing, I think, is that I have a very bad connection and it works great. I mean, it's not needed to have 5G or anything special, just a normal internet connection and that's all.
Yeah.
Well, Alessandro, how, I mean, you have been here for some months in Spain and so on, specifically in Barcelona. What do you think about the weather in Barcelona and what are the differences? Well, here, if you notice, we can see how the agents are looking at the participant that is talking less. In that version, we only had one action, that is the ability that all the participants can look at the participant that is talking less in order to try to enhance him in the conversation. So, well, here is some information about the application, how can you get it, and also it's available through AppLab, only for MetaQuest devices. For the other devices, you can ask information and I will tell you how to get this. And yeah, that's it. And well, as I mentioned, it is cross-platform, so it's available for several devices and so on. So here concludes my presentation. Thanks. And if you have any question.
Thanks very much, Ramon and Esan. So we're going to run in what in football they call injury time. The injury time here was the problems Esan had with the changing of the slides. So we'll probably carry on a bit after 4 o'clock. So if there's any questions, can you please either come live on the video and the audio or type them into the chat? Anyone? So we have a question from Shivodeep Saha saying, hi, thank you guys for wonderful, informative presentations. I was wondering how much the place illusion is significant here to generate better co-presence. Secondly, if the embodiment and avatars are not realistic and some random avatars are used instead, then what might be the possible consequences? So I think this is a question for Esan.
Thank you for the question. For the first one, how much the place illusion is significant, I think greatly. I think it's one of the things, like along with plausibility, it is the key that the idea that if you are not in the virtual environment and you don't feel like you are actually there, the interactions that you would have or the perception you would have would be drastically lowered. And I think it's also linked with the idea of co-presence, be it presence, like you as an individual or with the other people. Because I think if you don't have the place illusion, you would assume that the people around you are also not there. So I think it's something that is worth considering and also prioritizing. And as for the second part, for the embodiments, avatars that are not realistic, I think it is a great example of the various already existing social VR platforms that we have, such as VR chat or others that not necessarily use humanistic or realistic avatars, and it still works. Therefore, it is not an obligation to use realistic avatars, but I do believe that realistic avatars and self-lookalike avatars has a greater impact when it comes to feeling of presence and people actually engaging in a better way. I hope it answers your question.
Thanks very much. Are there any other questions in the chat, or anyone wants to come online on, I mean, showing your video or audio? Nothing more? everyone's still waiting, and it's 4 o'clock, so I guess there's still some interest out there. Okay, Ramon, just a very brief question. If someone wants to join in them, for example, the meeting with Picasso, how do you do that?
Well, first of all, it's obviously to get the application, either joining in the App Lab or, well, as I mentioned, you can scan that QR code and to get more information. But once you have joined there, well, you have to go through all the procedure of creating a room in VR United. There is like some descriptive videos that I can send to you in order to run it. I think that when you are used to it, it's quite easy to run, but basically you will enter into an empty space where you first have to select your avatar. We have several predefined avatars if you don't have your own avatar yet, so you can choose one of the default ones. And then once you have your avatar, you just have to create a room. So for this, you will see that there are some options. One of these is create room. And then you will, in order to run the specific scenario for the Picasso and Ramon y Cajal, you have to choose the scenario that is called Spanish Cafe. And then you will enter the scene. But of course, without seeing this, it's a very, I mean, I don't think that you can really get it if you don't see this procedure, if you have never opened VR United. But well, this is something that if you are interested in a specific scene, I can tell you, and also I can explain what are the available scenarios that you can try in VR United and so on.
Yes, if you're interested to actually get VR United, you can get it from the App Lab in the Quest. But what you need to do is to send the email address associated with your Quest to Ramon. Maybe Ramon, you can type your email into the chat. There was one more. Yes, one more thing I want to say is that there will be a research topic in Frontiers in Virtual Reality announced soon, which covers the area covered by this set of 4 webinars that they've been in the past few months, and we'll announce that on social media when it's ready, and you can join in kind of the discussion by submitting papers in the area of these 4 topics that have been discussed in this series of webinars. So one last question, anyone? Otherwise we can, yes?
I think there's a follow-up question from Shuadeep that is about the place being fictional and the participants familiar. And I think perfectly, like the place in many scenarios, for example, in the video that Ramon showed of David Chalmers, where they were in a sushi restaurant, where they were commenting on the restaurant itself and the parking lot around. This is a completely fictional scenario. So, but still they commented on it, and then the conversation flowed smoothly, and they were not weirded out or were disturbed by the details of it. So I would say that yes, the place can be perfectly fictional.
Okay, good. Thanks for that clarification. So I think with that, we'll end the session. Thanks everyone for coming, and look out on social media for our announcement of the research topic in Frontiers in Virtual Reality associated with this webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.